when I'm bored, just like you sometimes, or maybe people are going to judge this, but I do
Only
enjoy some TikTok.
It's really just you. No, I'm deep in now too. It's just
do you try to limit yourself?
But it's a weird algorithm because like whatever you see or search, then that's all you get.
Then do you get a little frustrated at that?
Yeah, because on Instagram you still get some variety, not a ton, but like on TikTok, I'm a little frustrated that it's so narrow of a topic window.
It brings me to my topic on hair. I'd like to talk about hair.
Okay.
Because I was looking up, one came into my feed about trending haircuts. Okay. So now all I'm getting is hair. And I'm like, enough with hair. Yeah. But let me tell you, have you noticed this, Jacqueline? There is a freaking old style hair trend. Like crazy. Like I'm not making it up. Yeah. Okay. Like I promise I'm not making it up. Like people are coming to their hairdressers and saying, can I please have Farrah Fawcett? Pamela Anderson's. There's a Pamela Anderson haircut now right now where they're all wanting to get that like
the big wispy curls.
Stevie Nicks was what. There's also this other Linda
Ronstadt.
That's it. Way to go, Jacqueline. I can't believe you saved me there because I can remember. But she has a power voice.
She does.
Oh,
she also has a really iconic haircut.
Yep, and that people are going in for her haircut too. So I'm starting to feel like this is my theory now because my hair's been kind of like the same forever.
And we forced you to change it a little, but
a little bit, right?
You would have been on trend if you kept it.
Well, and I even with like the fact that I have some like wing right here and a little bit of like that, people are trying to be like me now.
Yeah,
that is what is happening in the world. They're like. So don't change your hair, and over time it will come back around. Is what I'm noticing.
I don't know if I've ever. I think maybe I've told you this before. I knew you in terms of like.
Oh, did you know my
hair? As a friend, know your name.
Oh,
we knew your hair.
You knew my hair.
Your hair was a conversation in our house because for anyone listening who doesn't know, Sundie's a musician, and she would be on stage at our church, and I was. You had the. Kind of like big curls going.
Yeah, big curls. I did. Oh, God.
Okay, so this is interesting because maybe this is more on the guy side of it. I don't know. Joe, you tell me if you're a little more up with sports. But it seems to me like in the decades before the 2000s, every decade was like a trend. And you can literally say like the 70s or the 80s, and it means certain things.
Right.
And now... because of social media and stuff, it's like things change every week, it seems like.
It does.
So there's no clear, like, from 2010 to 2020, this was the trend.
I'm not
Bell
sure.
bottoms, And so with guys' hair, it seems like it followed more the, like, honestly, usually the soccer players.
Yeah.
Americans don't realize that. But the soccer players would start the hair trends and then they would like filter into America.
Yeah.
It would filter into the other sports. And for 10 years, you'd have that hairstyle.
Yeah.
And now it's like every player has a different style.
So you don't know what to do.
Yeah. I think you're right there. Because hairstyles, everything in general, because even like your point, 2010 to 2020, like it was like neon, like 80s were in, 90s started coming back in. And then you realize you have like different friend groups in different decades now.
Yeah.
And I really do think it's because of social media.
Well, I mean, like you have a little bit of a mullet over there, Joe. And I have to tell you, when I first heard that mullet was coming back, and I was like, it's a lie. I am sure it's a lie. Like we made fun of mullet after mullet forever.
That was butt of every joke for probably a decade.
It's back. Look at Joe. I know. Look at that mullet happen.
Beautiful. Now you have to go to our YouTube channel in order to see Joe's mullet.
See the mullet.
This is all a trick.
Shag. I also wrote that. I mean, like the people are just going in and asking for the shag haircut too, which is just like lots of layers up on top and then kind of long hanging down like this. Wow. I know you're fascinated by this topic.
Well, I am because that's so funny because on our next episode, one of the things I wanted to talk about was like, are the 90s coming back?
Oh, cool.
Dude,
I didn't
we were
right on.
They've been back.
They've been back.
They have.
I'm too late.
Yeah. Are we too late? Should we stop this right now?
I forgive you there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for chatting. I wanted to give a coaching shout out for just a minute. So sometimes what we have is we have groups of people that we work with for those that aren't listening to us. I think sometimes people think we work with just individuals. We do, but we have groups. And so we have this one group, a cyber security group, so much fun to work with. And I just had to give a shout out actually to one of our coaches too, Dana, Rockin' Dana, who worked with a manager there who is really struggling with this feeling of Overworked.
Oh yeah, I remember
overworked. And so she just coached him and said, listen, don't take on new projects and push on opening up and saying, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, or they're going to continue to not hire. And because he put his foot down about this particular area, they hired someone and started to bring him some relief. And that was such great coaching advice. Not always easy to follow.
Yeah.
Because you're afraid that like, oh, am I going to look like, but his cup was so full, he couldn't take in anymore. Yeah.
That's a good shout out. Did we already talk about this one? There was a similar one with a different team where it was like the manager said, oh, I'm people are, I'm too overwhelmed on my calendar, and there just wasn't any space. And what came up in the coaching session was that he actually had an open door policy that he was really proud of, and he really pushed that with the teams. He was like, yes, open door, like come in anytime. Because he was trying to be a very like open, accessible leader. Awesome. Yeah. But it was actually sabotaging his calendar. Totally. It was really similar how it was just that one little thing that kind of really unlocked a lot of the problems.
Yeah.
Nice work, Dana.
Yeah, it was a really encouraging one. That was cool. All right, so should we talk about a little about personality myths since we like to do this?
I have so many though. It's hard to stick to one. I've been thinking about these lately, and there's just so many I want to talk about.
When I'm talking in life, I have a whole bunch, and then sometimes when I have to sit down,
you get on the mic, you're like, wait, I don't know anything about personalities.
What is? I think the only myth that this one, it's actually kind of dull now that I look at it.
No, we'll make it good. We'll make stuff up and lie, and people like it.
Oh, okay. So here's actually a perfect. Can I just tell a little story, a tiny story? Like when I was obviously extrovert in my personality, but when my younger years, like really an extrovert. So, but I used to in high school sometimes really admire the introverts and just feel like, look how mysterious they are.
Yeah.
They just seem so cool and awesome. And I was always like, come on, girl, you can be like that. You can do this. And I used to feel like today I'm going to, I would break it. And like, so I flew off to college in Texas. And I remember telling myself on the plane that I was going to be an introvert in college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I get it. I've thought that too.
Because they were just so cool.
It is easier to be cool because of the mysterious part as an introvert. We've talked about this, how musicians...
Yeah, like Nick Jonas has that.
Yeah, so one of the myths is people think, if you're on a big stage, if you're a big celebrity, you must be more extroverted.
Right, no.
Introverts actually occupy more of the on-stage group, and it's because they view the crowd as like one entity, like one big wall they're talking to.
Yeah.
And they can be cool, more mysterious, and therefore kind of more enticing on stage because of that. Like, what are you thinking? What do you?
Yeah,
you don't give as much away.
Yeah. I know. I love that. So the myth is that changing for the sake of others will actually stick. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
it doesn't work. I wanted to change for the sake of others, but you will still.
Sundie trying to become an introvert. Let's just break this down for a second.
Joe is just snickering over there at the thought of it.
I think it took. I think she's an introvert now.
Yeah. Anyways, that's an interesting. So you can try. Now that doesn't mean we can't develop, right, the other sides of ourselves, but
she's trying to take it all serious
for the sake of others. Well, it just doesn't work.
I don't laugh at you. I've thought that kind of thing many times.
You thought I should be more introverted?
No, but for myself, I'm like, I've definitely wanted to be more mysterious because I give too much away, and it's like,
me too.
Then you're not cool.
Mystery gone pretty quickly when I walk into a room.
Yes.
Darn it. And then there's mysterious Jacqueline over there. We're always wondering.
What is she thinking?
I just think it's so funny that as a teenager, you thought that introverts were mysterious.
I did.
Because I would say, as an introvert, I always just felt like the quiet, like what am I trying to say? Like the extroverts were like the cool ones. Yeah. Like they were the ones that like everyone flocked to. So it's just funny to hear.
Yeah. Both sides of you probably... My husband's an introvert too, and his best friend, Jay, is a freaking extrovert. And Adam used to be like, how does he do it?
Yeah.
How does he walk into a room and talk to 5 people at once? It was like this magic. And he was so envious of this. But Jay will tell the story and say, Adam had all the girls following, because he was kind of this handsome, like, who are you? Do you like me? Do you not? And so I thought interesting perspective.
I feel like I'm rethinking my entire high school experience.
There was probably a whole flock of boys thinking, who is that girl? Yeah.
That's funny though.
Anyways. All right. So last month I did an episode on Gen Zs and I said I was going to do a series. So this is part 2 of Gen Z's. Part 1 got a lot of discussion over on that one. It was
on YouTube.
Like, oh my Lord.
A lot of people are angry.
I am not a very liked person right now. You have to be really secure in yourself. I was actually talking about empathy and understanding Gen Zs, but I think it brought some heated discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, I do actually. We were talking yesterday how we've all actually enjoyed the negative comments because I do think generational conversation sparks a lot of emotional response, but also, you gotta love the trolls who don't listen to the whole 20-second clip. God forbid you listen to 20 full seconds to get the context.
Right. And I actually have 2 Gen Z kids and I really have a lot of empathy of trying to understand it. I felt like that was coming from such a place of trying to understand, but I get it. And opinions welcome.
Yeah.
So
when people have their own experiences, I think too sparks those comments. Like they're frustrated in their workplace, for example. And
they are. Yeah. So today I think they'll love me after this one because today we're talking about what is it that people love about working with Gen Zs. There is things that people love that they bring to the table, and I'm just going to highlight those.
Yeah.
And by the way, this was through reading articles. This is like not just Sundie's thoughts. Through reading articles, watching YouTube, having my own Gen Z children, and then interviewing some Gen Zs too. So here's what I hear is, this one's no surprise that they keep up with the pace of change. Because of that, they actually are great change agents for you in the company. You know how it is. You hear about the generations that are afraid of certain things of change. Millennials are great at this too, though. It's just Gen Zs have come right along and been like, sure, technology's changing, something's changing. I'm not afraid of it, bring it on. And they actually find it to be a challenge to learn something new. They get bored quickly. So they're like, actually, change is fun.
Yeah. And as a millennial who likes change and innovation, I even feel intimidated by the pace they can change.
Yeah, you can. This one is the one that first came to my mind, and every single article I read said this one. This was a consistent compliment, and so you're not going to be surprised that they have an entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah, it's baked in. It's why I get so frustrated at Greenhouse about when we have to parse apart entrepreneur conversation versus not entrepreneur. Yeah, because that generation and even my age of entrepreneurs, it's all one thing. They actually think most of them. I forget the stat. It was around 90%. Of surveyed kids in grade school say they're going to have a business. They're going to do something entrepreneurial. Doesn't mean that's their only thing. Doesn't mean that's how they define themselves, how older generations think of it. It's just part of life. You have a side business. You have some hustles or gigs or you do a little of this or that. You change all the time what you do. It's just part of the mindset, which I think to people like me makes sense. Yeah. But to people who are older and not entrepreneurial, it's like, what are
you talking about? Well, I had an interesting conversation with Cynthia, my 20-year-old. We were kind of debating one time. One time? Many times. And one of the things I think she was leading into the conversation around feeling like you guys stuck with your jobs. She was kind of getting mad at me with that thing where you guys stuck with your jobs no matter what. Yeah. And I said, you know what? In all fairness to us, that it's different for you is she's like, there's so many other ways to make money. There's side gigs, there's side hustles, there's this. And I'm like, yeah.
You have those options.
You have those. When we were growing up, if there was a side hustle, we didn't know about it. Unless somebody was talking about it at school, there wasn't a lot of ways to be incredibly entrepreneurial, except for a bake sale or
Yeah, and to go after anything entrepreneurial, you had to have investors. You had to be able to get a big loan with the bank, which was really hard. Yeah. You had to have the ability to hire people and buy buildings. Now, and from your dorm room for free, you can start a business and have everything you need.
Absolutely. And think about how hard it was to market. So what a compliment to this generation that they have those capabilities. But you're right. That's probably why we stuck with it. Because it was it's either this or have no food. Whereas now, Cynthia, she flips furniture. She can just be like, a little low on rent today. Go pick up a couch and sell it for $200. And she's like, met the rent.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have known where that couch was for the life of me, you know? So I love this about their generation, that they have so many, and they're definitely less risk averse.
Yeah.
In that way as well.
Yeah. I think it's an overall good thing too. And it'll start to, I think, solve some of the bigger like global issues, because the fact that corporations got so much power was so much of the problem. Like name any big global problem, and it's pretty much because like the profits of big corporations runs the world. Yeah. Now you've got like, once that generation has grown up and technology is just kind of, I mean, all of a sudden people have options. Yeah. And to your point, like, gosh, if I had Uber, I would have driven Uber so much to make extra money.
Me too. I would have. I love that they have that way to.
Yeah.
So the next one is they fight for flexibility in the workplace.
Yeah.
But I know some people see this as a negative, but the truth is it comes from a really good place. Is that they're like, these are people with actual needs. Look at them. Look at the person and recognize that they have children, that we have days in which we think better in our alone space. And so they're fighting for that hybrid workplace, and we all are.
Yeah.
But they're really like, it's a part of their values.
Yeah,
now.
they're expecting
it. They're expecting
which
it.
Which feels like the difference.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, so let me talk to the side of maybe the like manager or leader or business owner, because I struggle with this one. I think about it every day. Because I am with you. I think what they're bringing to the workplace is amazing, and it's what I always wanted, and I think it's so good for the world.
Yeah.
I think what's so challenging, and big organizations are really trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
Because they're based on a command and control structure.
Yeah.
But even small organizations, and myself included, I'm like, but it's so tricky, because like the second they start doing what you want, doing the freedom you want to give them, it makes it impossible as a leader to know where the boundaries lie.
Oh, yeah.
For example, we've always paid people for like a 40-hour work week. So if there's no such thing as a 40-hour work week where I see your face for 40 hours, how do I know how much to pay you versus him? How do I know like if you're doing the job or not? And I think that's actually a good thing, because it forces managers to be more outcome driven, which is what they always should have been.
Sitting at a desk for 40 hours and producing nothing. That's a great point.
But it's still really tricky, because you fall back into those habits. I find myself always falling back into the habit of like, oh yeah, but you got to be there, because I did that. I had to work my ass off and be at the desk for those hours. So like you do too.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we readjust that mindset? Yeah. I think we actually need to do a whole
I actually love that you're talking about this, and I love that I also am going to admit that I don't have the answer.
It's so hard.
I think it is what organizations need to be talking about to come up with their own solutions around it, instead of dismissing it, which is what really I'm trying to bring awareness to, right?
Yeah.
And you are too, that it exists.
Yeah.
So how we measure,
because like I have a friend who is a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And she can make her own hours. You know, it's basically just her. She has a couple people who help out. But so now they move around. They live in a different state every couple of months, and they just whatever. Easy, right? Because there's no judgment that needs to be made about her performance. But then you scale up to like the big, Fortune 100s. Well, they have to compare people to each other somehow. They somehow have to say how your performance is.
Yep.
And that's really hard if like people are all operating on their own rules. So it's just funny. I think I get in my head about it because I'm such an advocate for what Gen Z is bringing to the workplace.
Yeah.
But yet as a leader, I see how it's so incredibly difficult.
Yeah. And this makes me think, Gen Zs, if you're listening to, one of your greatest strengths is that you're very innovative. So come up with ideas to like bring ideas to the workplace around how this, but I mean, if you're going to be like, I want the flexibility, bring the solutions too on some ideas on how success can be measured.
I think that's genius. Like bring it up, especially with your older manager who is struggling with that.
Thinking one way, right?
Because I think it tends to be a quiet, like, you stay in your camp, I stay in mine, and then we're just like mad at each other. And then we leave. It's like, I think if they brought the ideas up and like co-create together with the older generations, then it's so much like everyone's going to be happier about the way you figure out. Like,
I agree. And you know what's really weird is the light behind you is blinking. It's sometimes green and it's sometimes blue. And I just noticed that.
Yeah. So it represents my mood. It's kind of like a mood ring. It's
so right
my
now,
mood
your mood is turquoise blue.
Yeah.
But just a moment ago, it was green.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe,
I know.
Are you messing with us?
What you said triggered me, so it changed.
When Joe doesn't like our point, red's coming up. For those of you listening, we do have like fluorescent lights behind us to, I don't know, make us cool. What is it? Vibe in here. We're just, bringing some color. You're right. So he has the power over the controls there.
I also, just like a side note, I also think it's interesting how I'll call it more like knowledge jobs can flex and change more than like retail or service jobs. So it is interesting. How is that going to play out with like people who work in restaurants and stores? Yeah. Well, you can't just like make up your own hours and leave for appointments during the day. It's like, no, but yet, like those desires are going to come in to play. So I actually think I'm overall with you that I think it'll be a good thing.
We just have a lot of talking to do.
We have a lot of things to work out, but it'll be, I think, totally unrecognizable. The old way of working in like 20 years, guarantee it's like, you won't even recognize that anymore. Yeah.
You know, Cynthia is okay that I mentioned her. I told her I was doing a 3-part series on Gen Z, and she's like, I was like, is it okay to like bring you into it here and there? And
we should interview her on the podcast.
Gosh, she would be so interesting to interview because her journey has been so interesting. She said one time, like literally a self-awareness part, like we had a conversation because she's not in a knowledge job. And so she was talking to me about how, well, what do you do when you have like a really bad day, or I just don't want to go to work because something I feel bad happened. Yeah. Or I'm not feeling well. We just had this conversation. I was like, I think where you need to remember on the other end is that when you say no, someone else is feeling the burden of you not showing up because they're in those jobs where they support each other. Yeah. And honestly, she was a little like, oh, like it
Never
was
thought
like,
of that. Yeah. And that's actually the crux of the
She was
struggle.
like, oh, that's right. The other person. It was funny, but she was honest to be quickly like, you're right.
And anyone who's not Gen Z as a leader, they struggle with those scenarios the most because it's like, well, when I felt bad, I had to show up.
Right, right.
So it's that dissonance the same way you had with maybe like
And their generation is saying, why?
Yeah.
Like, why? Why'd you do that? If you felt a certain way or you were dealing with why? So there's got to be balance in here somewhere. But the fact that they're asking why to me is like worth a discussion.
Yeah. And that's why I think it'll be unrecognizable, because same way that virtual meetings changed the world from COVID.
Yes.
Like you had this forcing function that's like, all right, now we can live anywhere and we can meet virtually.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, that changes everything.
Yeah.
I think it'll be similar with I'm feeling bad today, I don't want to come in.
Yeah.
Right now, everyone's mad about that.
Yeah.
But in 20 years, it'll be somehow we will have a new workplace culture where that's doable.
Yep.
And that's the norm. I can't imagine what that looks like either, but
maybe there's some sort of balance there too. But yeah, I'm with you.
It'll definitely happen.
The next one I want to call out is that they seek training opportunities. When they're interviewing for jobs, they're saying, what are you going to do about my professional development and my training? It is an absolute must in every interview that's happening right now, is they want to know, how are you going to help me develop? So that's a plus. That's not something I was asking, especially right out of college when I was trying to get my first jobs.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, right, thank you so much for the job.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's one of the Gen Z things that's not like, oh, they're so needy and they're so like whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's, again, it's driven by technology, because now, like, for example, my dad, he learned a job and he did it his whole career at the same company, and then he retired.
Right.
Now things change every day, every week.
Yeah.
So you have to be a learner, and you have to always be training and learning, or else you're irrelevant.
Yeah.
Other than like very few jobs, like an archaeologist, maybe it's just always doing it the same.
Always doing that.
but most kind of like knowledge jobs are, you have to relearn constantly.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Of course they require training, because they just know inherently. I don't even think they think about it. They just
it's like
intuitively know, like, you have to always be learning, or else you're nothing.
Right.
So that's one that I'm like, I stand with them 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's
I love that
needed
about them.
and good. Yeah.
The last three are just really quick ones. They're just, we know that every Gen Z in an interview now is asking about the company's values. And they're asking that because they want to know if their values align with their values. And if they don't, they won't take the job. But they're asking. So if you're on the other end, be prepared to answer what you value, because they're looking to see if there's a match there. They're also very motivated by a balanced life. We know this. They're like, they don't care about things the way that we, like there's this whole joke about, oh, great, my grandmother's going to give me all the dishes from her. And their generation's like, please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't, because they just don't, they want a little bit more. They're more about the experiences. But millennials really started to step into
that was one of the characteristics, like, oh, they value experiences over things. Agreed.
Yeah.
But what I'm noticing about Gen Z is that they take it 10 steps further. Yeah. So some Gen Zs I know are like, well, yeah, I'm going to get the corporate job for a few years and I'm going to save all that money. I'm still going to live super cheap, save all that money. And now I can retire at age 32.
That's what because they want to have fun.
And like, I have enough money to travel the world.
Right.
And then like boomers maybe get mad at that because they think it's so unrealistic. And I get it, but I'm also like, well, they kind of played the system better and they made it work. Yeah, they're not cheating.
They really think of work as work and as home as home. It's like, and both are equally as important.
Yeah.
That's what I've really heard them say. And then the last one is no surprise at all, is that they care about sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's like, if your company isn't talking about this, they're not showing up. But what I also have really noticed, especially around the sustainability area, is they're willing to donate their money in anything that has around sustainable things. Like even if they're paying more for something and they believe that it's creating a more sustainable future for us, they're in.
Yeah.
That is a really awesome characteristic about their personalities or their generation.
Let me just mention, because I know a lot of our listeners would be into this. It comes up a lot with entrepreneurs, and I'm just surprised. Like, a lot of people haven't heard of it yet, I find. B Corps. Have you heard of this? Have you heard of B Corps?
Sometimes I'm not with the name. Tell me more.
So there's a whole like business entity called B Corp, which is relatively newer. But there's also, just on the non-nerdy side, there's just like a whole organization of B Corps. So Tom's is probably the most well-known one.
Okay.
Patagonia.
So no, I didn't know.
But then a lot of the brands that people love, more niche brands, are B Corps. And it's essentially the fusion of like nonprofits that have a purpose and a mission and for-profit business. It's like so Greenhouse isn't, but most people would view us like a B Corp. We're a for-profit business that is driven by a people-centered mission. And so B Corp is really cool, and you can like go to their conferences, and I don't know, they have all this cool stuff that you can check out, where it's all these companies trying to like do good in the world with their money and with.
And are you saying that so the Gen Zs are really
drawn to B Corps?
B Corps.
Yeah.
B Corps. It just sounds cool to say.
Yeah.
Are you going to that B Corps conference?
Yeah.
Because I am.
I know. It's like, I think it's been growing, but I think it'll explode because of the Gen Z desire to like work for those kind of companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If people are asking what are some of the key characteristics I need to know about Gen Z, especially in the workplace, as a leader, et cetera, what do you think they need to know?
I think that what they need to know is, if I was just to summarize it really quick, is that they're driven by values, that they want to have purpose in work, that they want work-life balance, that they can be the best change agents for your company if you just let them, and that to not be afraid of their entrepreneurial mindset, because that doesn't just mean side gigs on the outset. It means innovation within the company. So the bottom line here is just see them for, I know this is the hard part, is that our parents were afraid of us, right? And to really, but we brought great things in this world, and they are too, and employees, to just see them for what they bring versus all the things that you feel like they don't bring. That's really the takeaway of this.